Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. It's good to see you. You've seen the title, so at this stage you know more about today's reading than I do, since I speak to you from the recent alternate past. This is a general, timeless one, ideally designed for quite a large audience, so we won't get as specific as we would in a private booking, link down below. If most of what I'm saying feels like an answer to a question you've been living, take those tidbits with you and let a fellow traveller excavate the rest. If it's not your reading, there are playlists on my channel hub to randomise finding something else. Whilst it's true that a broken clock is right twice a day, I'm not sure that same clock is right 10 times within the hour. So trust yourself, above all, to know what's useful for you and what makes you feel more empowered for hearing it, no matter what your beliefs. While we're on beliefs, on this channel gendered terms are just a specificity of language to describe energetic tendencies and signatures, solar or lunar inclination in accordance with a hermetic law of polarity, and not any kind of socialisation to buy into wholesale or conflate with the identity or orientation of anyone described. Romantic and spiritual labels used are plucked from lengthy precedent predating any unfortunate trending controversies or engineered cyclical backlash. My dude, around these parts, we don't relinquish the complexity of our full histories. We trust ourselves cognitively to adapt what we consume and see what's healthy and long-term accurate. I'm legally obliged to say this is entertainment in quote marks and that I'm an occultist not qualified in unrelated disciplines to advise on physical and mental health, finances, legalities. You get the picture, you're in charge of you. All my readings are protected and warded by frankly magnificent beneficial forces, though I don't share my custom prep rituals on camera any more than I give out my address. I hope the reasoning behind that is obvious, but you can trust there are zero parasitic or adversarial influences permitted within 100 unseen paces of any signal we patch from the noise here today. So sit back, relax into the shape of your most luminous possible future self, cozy up to imaginal allies, and take in whatever it is you need to hear. If you do like it, this small channel with a big mission very much appreciates subscriptions, thoughtful comments, or donations in order to spread the word and keep the lights on. Now, let's tune that dial. Alright, I might as well say I had an insufferably new age parent. Apologies to many of you who are still a thriving member of the new age community, but I was bombarded with a lot of that material as a youngling. I was also surrounded by witchcraft, atheism, Catholicism, and Islam in different ways that all intersected to make me who you find before you. But certainly the home environment was very heavily Hay House, right, and Oprah, etc., etc., and one could not speak ill of these gods lest one be receptive of punitive measures. Now, this means that occasionally I'll get like an earworm or a mind virus that is from that whole bank, and I'm sorry in advance. But I believe this to be a CD that was a companion to a Louise Hay course that I was sent on as an unruly teenager to try and unruly me. It might even be an Abraham Hicks CD, I'm not sure, but it was a song which I was just singing it, but I'm not going to sing it, no. The Spirit is telling me to sing it. I'm not going to sing it because I sound crap today. But the lyrics are: doors, opening doors, closing doors. I am safe, it's only change. I am safe, it's only change. And this was, one of the sort of, I guess, manifestation-y kind of CDs to listen to try and tell yourself that you were all right within a particular environment, so that you could do things like mirror work, things like self-concept healing, before that was really given that name. And we're talking a little while ago, so it was still very much the energy of the Donnie Darko VHS that they watch in class with the lifeline exercise cards. Which is partly why I don't want to sing it for you, because it might give some of you like 80s or 90s flashbacks. But there's something about that, right? Firstly, there's the energy of that. There's the environment of the new age, which is either something I feel you've left or something you are ambiently immersed in, perhaps even for the first time. And, you know, welcome to the jungle if you're kind of new to all of it. And on my channel, I feel very honoured, you know, because you've somehow stumbled on me too. But there's something to do with that is a confirmation for many of you. The other reason it's coming up is that I think today's reading is about an individual who is almost like singing songs like that to themselves, or needs to be. Actually, I don't think they would, from their energy, which we'll get into, I don't think they would like sing a Louise Hay Hay House tape song to self-soothe, or whatever the fuck it was. I can't even remember. It's just a mind virus at this point. But they would need somebody to sing it to them, I think. I don't know whether this is a love reading for you, or whether this is perhaps like your child, or somebody that you care about very deeply in a non-romantic sense, who you are looking out for, or who you are invested in the emotional well-being of. All of the above will apply with this reading. I understand that probably the vast majority will come for a love reading because that's the nature of YouTube and tarot. But if it is your kid, your colleague, your spouse, your friend, your family member, whatever, you know, it will still apply. I just may say some love reading things and you just discard those, okay? Confirmation, hiccups already. Excuse me. Are you quite finished? I think that's my punishment for not singing earlier. Anyway, okay, so let's go in, right? We've got, I'm sorry for being so sad and stuck as a core emotional energy. We'll get to this. This was an optional extra. Ignore. Don't. No. I know the love reading people will want to dwell on that. We'll get to it. I'm sorry for being so sad and stuck is this person's energy. For some of you, this person, by the way, may even be you, but I'm going to describe it as if it's an external person, because this feels like a reading of shielding somebody, safeguarding them, soothing them even. It's very, like, it's interesting the way the Cancer card came out. If you didn't see the intro, it might be worth like flipping that back, because it was at the top of the deck and then it was at the top of the deck again, and then I completely tried to shuffle it out so it didn't look fixed, and then it randomly turned out to be the one from the middle that I picked anyway, you know what I mean? I think that happened with the Queen as well, who I then swore at because she scattered the cards everywhere. Excuse me, I'm getting out of breath as I say this, which is me trying to prevent disaster, right? That's a mood. Preventing anything sort of untoward or less than great happening to a person that you care about is symbolised, sorry about this, by me trying to run ahead with my words to not say the wrong thing. So this is both you kind of trying to come in and protect this person, or your higher self trying to protect you, but it's also a vibe of this person struggles with their language, running away from them before they really had a chance to articulate what it is that they want to say, which is what I was just doing, and sort of feels very sad and stuck, right? And they're sorry for that. This person feels like a burden. And I don't mean that they are a burden, so if this is you, please don't panic. I mean that they perceive of themselves in their self-concept as a burden. And it may be that in the same way that music was offered to me on a course that I was sent to try and help me in a very sort of let's fix you kind of a way, at a time where circumstances were being incredibly pesky regarding health and all sorts of things. But you know, that vibe is somebody else was coming in to help me there, and they were actually offering things that would be really crucial for me in this career down the line, and that would be really healing to work with and to use and to do at the time. But they were doing so knowing that I had resistance to it. They were doing so with the framework of I need to fix this person, they're an unruly person in a not so great way. And they were doing so knowing that I had my own judgments of the New Age community and of all of this kind of stuff that would possibly conflict with it coming in and helping out. So I felt, while I was doing that course and while I was hearing that music and stuff, simultaneously, like I was doing valuable healing work on myself and feeling slightly better in some areas, but also like someone was trying to fix me because I was at fault, or that someone was trying to impose something on me because I was out of control, or because they perceived that I couldn't deal with change without them reassuring me as to my safety, if that makes sense. So it's a very, like, it lingers in the mind, because actually that song brings up a lot of different emotions, you know, anger with, oh God, I'm a burden, with guilt, with exuberance at the kind of rebellion that could be had on, for instance, a spiritual retreat with a load of people that didn't know me. Sort of just fucking with it, you know, just being a terror or saying unexpected stuff to those people, you know, all sorts of things tied in, as well as healing and as well as difficulty processing my emotions at that time for, as I say, fairly substantial reasons. That is the vibe of this person. That is, they definitely have that identity, like I did, of being stuck, and that affecting other people. It's not just a problem that they're sad and stuck, which obviously is a difficulty, but it's also the case that they feel their sadness and stuckness is either contagious or affecting other people adversely in a way that would be unnecessary for those people to deal with. I don't really know what extent I can say this to on YouTube, and this won't apply to everybody. So if this isn't something you already know about, it's not for you, and don't panic about it, okay? But this is confirmation for those who already know that this is a situation. For some, this person feels enough of a burden that they have had some seriously dark thoughts about whether to relieve others of that burden. And the phrase I heard in my head was club, not Fight Club, the other one, right? The Sion Sono, I think. I'm probably saying that wrong, but the film about teenagers being exposed to a viral phenomenon of unaliving themselves, and it sort of draws parallels to things like the Blue Whale game and Momo and all that sort of stuff, which I don't want to get into here. And again, this is not to strike fear into the hearts of anybody who hears those terms and is like, oh shit. This is if you already know that this person might have had thoughts about that stuff, you know, about not being here. This is your confirmation via that film, via those viral things. It may be confirming their age if it's not directly confirming that thing. And again, if they haven't spoken to you or someone around you directly about having those thoughts, this is not like an emergency reading sending you off into a panic. And I don't want you to act disproportionately to how things are. Because I do feel that if that person has considered stuff like that, they have sought help, right? And that you would be in a position to help them if you're hearing this reading, okay? So do not be alarmed. But that's coming up for some of you, and for some of you, you will know that this person has had those thoughts and feelings, and that they have been interested in that movie or in phenomenon like the Blue Whale game, you know, and looking it up and the news around that, and sort of the interesting virality of things like that form of escape in particular age groups and stuff. The other thing I'm seeing in my head is The Falling, which I think was like a first film for a lot of crucial people now, or like one of their first films. Like the one that comes to mind is Florence Pugh, who I think, if it wasn't her first role, it was one of the first, but very good film anyway, about, based on a true story of schoolgirls in the UK who all experienced a fainting phenomenon at the same time, and it became kind of a viral, I can't remember what the term is for it, but it became like a social contagion, that they were all having these fainting spells. And the film sort of goes somewhere else with it, but this was a real thing that took place. And, you know, I have family members that remember it and stuff like that. And again, it's speaking to that, like, the passing on of certain things. So for some of you, if it's not about, you know, the scary stuff that we talked about there, and you're looking out for somebody, but you don't know that they've had those thoughts or anything, don't worry, because it might also be talking about that pass it on feeling of when you're at school or in a work environment where people tend to talk about the same things or whatever, and a lot of people are experiencing depression, or a lot of people are hormonally aggressive, or a lot of people are having dark thoughts or whatever, and you kind of get a bit of a social contagion of that, and you maybe explore some things online that you might not have looked at, or you might hear a story that you otherwise wouldn't have heard, or you start to feel lower than you otherwise might have felt, or, you know, someone gives you their account of a thing and you relate to it so hard that it makes you realise your own emotions and sort of speak about them and stuff like that. So there's something going on with that, and it's not as worrying as all of that sounds, and I don't think anybody's life is in danger. I want to really stress that. But also some of those phenomena may be relevant here. It could be as simple as the person we're talking about is a bit like me, and, you know, watches plenty of strange iceberg videos on YouTube and things, and looks up weird stuff that's happened to people, and that's how you know who this is about, okay? But for certain, they are feeling sad and stuck, and they feel sorry about what that means to the people around them, which includes you, right? With Cancer, and I feel in the inverse, firstly, I need to do another kind of confirmation side note, which is that around the time that I was hearing the song we began with, someone very close to me had Cancer twice, right? And I don't mean the astrological placement, I mean the thing. And I was not coping with that, and that was part of why I was like acting out in the views of these very new age people. So there may be a literal link to illness in that sense, but again, that's for confirmation, not for telling you. I don't diagnose or give prognoses on this channel. Your health is your own thing to manage, and to do so responsibly, including your mental health. So if all of that is very triggering, or anything has triggered you so far, click off, come back to me, all right? But it may just be confirmation for some if you've got somebody close to you that has gone through that, or indeed that somebody close to this person is very ill with that, right? But going back to the astrological interpretation of Cancer, I feel sort of, I wanted to say suspended, but it's retrograde, right? It's in the reverse. There is a particular requirement to pay attention to emotion for this person. And in the moment that I pulled it out again, when it kind of wanted to come through a few times, what I got was, I feel and I flip, or I feel and I repress, or I don't feel, I'm unable to feel. And very often when people say they can't feel something, it's not because they lack the ability, unless they're in a 0.000 something % of people who really do have difficulty with that, as in like cluster B type stuff is going on with them, and they literally can't feel emotion in the same way. What I'm on about instead is somebody who says something like, I can't feel feelings, because they have dissociated for so long and so hard that they're now unable to tap into emotions when they arise. And that is something, again, that relates back to that when I was hearing that music and that time period. I felt very deeply, but there were some things that, because I'd never been allowed to feel them or express the emotion as it came up, I believed until that course, until that night that I heard that I didn't feel, right? Namely anger. It had always been frowned upon, prohibited in our household to be angry. And so much of my justified anger was bottled up over a long period of time. And until probably my 20s, I had no idea I felt it and no outlet through which to express any of it. And that made me not into an angry person at all, but into a sad and stuck person, because the only way that I could process that unprocessed emotion, that thing I couldn't feel, was to put it into something else, right? Was to convince myself, oh, I don't feel angry because that would be inappropriate. I feel sad. I feel stuck, right? And that went on for many years, and it's something I still have to train myself out of doing today, just because the consequences of being genuinely angry and expressing that would have been too high as I was growing up. Now, similarly, for this person, whether it's that they've repressed a particular emotion, or whether it's just that in general, being upfront about their emotions would not have been well received, for some reason, they believe that they're not feeling a thing. And actually, it's not that they don't feel it. It's that they subconsciously anticipate some kind of consequence for expressing it. So this could even be someone who's sad and stuck and doesn't know they're sad and stuck, and you see them more clearly than they see themselves. I think more likely it might be somebody who is deeply depressed or extremely righteously angry about something. I'm hearing abuse for some people. It could be somebody who has never processed grief because they immediately had to step into a role where, in order for somebody they were taking care of or they were helping out to experience their grief, they had to just deny that feeling and behave in a certain fashion, right? And again, you can see how all of this might relate back to things like illness, because in a family unit or a friendship circle or even a relationship, if we've got one person that needs to support another person who's having material difficulty in that very extreme way, they might kind of shove a few emotions down in order to do that, in a way that actually long term makes their expression of same emotions difficult to impossible, right? It makes it either transfers it into a slightly different expression of a different thing, or it means that they can't even articulate how it is that they're feeling because they don't know how to recognize depression or anger or aggression or, whatever it may be. There are many, many emotions, but I feel we're dealing with negative ones, right? Because they are the ones that are harder to express. So I think that this person has been perhaps put in a position of responsibility and unable to express how they felt, or in order to get away from the enormity of how they felt, or perhaps the reactivity of people around them when it comes to a particular feeling, they pushed it down, right? And they denied it. And now it's like they're experiencing extreme discomfort and they have no idea why. They may even be able to tell you or me circumstantially why. They may be able to go, I hate my job and it didn't work out with this person and my health is like this and my friendships are all a bit bleh. They may have all of these kind of reasons, but when they're actually in good circumstantial mode, when they are, as the New Agers would call it, manifesting correctly, etc., or in high vibe, right? They're still not in high vibe. They're still not actually feeling good, even if the boxes are ticked in terms of what they've got going for them. And I think, before we race ahead, the boxes are fairly ticked, right? They've got good things going. They still feel an inherent dissatisfaction. Indeed, for some of you, it may be that it's taken this person to get their dream job, the fancy car, the partner they wanted, the friendship circle they would have liked, to be living in the town they wanted to live in, etc., 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 for them to realise that they are deeply unhappy and that something is irking them that they can't express. Now, you and I know from this reading that that irksome thing is likely an emotion that they've never had the opportunity to bring to the surface in a healthy and safe way. And when I say safe, again, for many, this will relate back to childhood of like, what was allowed to be expressed, which is why I used my own example of like, you could feel anything in our household. You could cry at the music on an advert and it would be embraced by everybody else. And we would all laugh about how emotionally open we were. But if that emotion was anger, it didn't exist. Or you were out, you know? And there is always like, in every unit, whether it's a familial unit or a social group or even a workplace environment, you find that there is usually at least one thing that is, in an unspoken way, kind of prohibited, right? I'm also pulled to recommend the person that helped me to come to this realization alongside Louise Hay, who I came to many years later. I think his name is Patrick Tian. I may have got the surname wrong on that, but his name's Patrick. I'll link him in the description if I remember. And he does a lot of work on YouTube and a lot of kind of private work about unhealthy familial dynamics or unspoken things within a unit, or how dynamics of a unit work where one person plays this role and another person does this and all that sort of stuff, which is super useful to watch whether or not you feel you had a healthy childhood, because these patterns tend to play out like as we mature in things like university environments, workplace environments, house shares, etc., right? There's always like somebody taking on a particular role that they may have taken in childhood. For those who resonate with the idea that this is perhaps an inability to express something in order to protect a present day friend or partner or something, there may be extra stuff in that, with me mentioning Patrick about, hiccups, confirmation, about what that partner or friend or extra person used to do as their role in their childhood or in their previous relationship dynamic or whatever. And that might give a clue as to like what this buried thing is, or this repressed thing is, or this thing that they can't feel is. If it's not just feelings in general, for many of you it will be just like, this person doesn't now know how to feel emotions because either they've never been allowed, or like when they have felt them, they've had such extreme consequences that they've sort of scrapped the whole thing. Something that happened to me before I was on this course, and we know we're sort of dealing with anger in my examples, right? But years before that, I was at university and had a very fleeting relationship with someone that I was very attached to, who did a very bad thing. And I'm not going to go into all of that because I'll get annoyed even now. And it's not the obvious. But even though that was a bad thing, my reaction was completely disproportionate when they did it. I was livid. I was uncontrollable. My friends didn't recognise me. I think I actually frightened my best mate, who at the time lived in the flat next to me, and was like, what is all that noise? What is going on? And then just kind of saw me in the aftermath of this and was like, this is not you. What the fuck? Do I call somebody? Because my disproportionate reaction was to seriously trash the place I was living in, do damage to almost everything I could lay eyes upon. And I'm not a strong person. I don't know where I got this. I'd seriously like hulked out, and it's become like an infamous thing among my friends. Like, oh, do you remember the one time Elle got angry, you know? But it's this kind of, I completely lost it. All the anger that I hadn't been able to express from other things came out because I could express it as relationship anger. And I broke mirrors, I made holes in drywall in that classic like toxic masculinity type way. I ripped a radiator off the wall, my dudes. That is hard. That is hard to do. I had a lot of stuff going on, let me tell you. And in the end, I was angry at all sorts of things. I was angry at various things that had gone on in my childhood. I was angry at my own body and my disabilities and the way that they'd been dealt with by health professionals and by myself. I was angry at the way the world was going politically at that time, all sorts of stuff. But I'd never been able to say, I'm angry. So wouldn't you know, when I was in a place far away from any consequences, if I did get angry, it took over me. It completely, I've never seen red like that ever again. And I've been around some extremely trashy people doing deliberately malevolent things, sometimes to children, and yet I've always kept my cool ever since that time. But I think that's because that time was like the most unaware of being of emotion. And it's a really long story, and I'm sorry, but it's to demonstrate for you that part of this person's thing with like, I can't feel, is that deep down they might fear that if they did feel something, things will get dire. And whether that's that they're like me and they've repressed their anger and they feel that if they did get angry, they may be a danger to their environment or the people around them or indeed themselves, or whether it's something like they've never been able to say they were sad. So if they did get sad, it would be years of sad. It might even be decades of sad, and they wouldn't know how to handle that safely, right? And again, there are many other emotions. It could be jealousy. It could be, I've never been around people where I could say healthily, I feel jealousy right now. Let's work that out conversationally and let's do stuff about this dynamic. And so instead of expressing that jealousy, they've bottled it up, and now to express it, they would go off at somebody in terms of that jealousy and be really unreasonable and make themselves look like the partner from hell, things like that. And again, use your discernment as to like where this applies and what it applies to. That said, don't try and mind read another person, because we're not here to like guess at what somebody else's issues are or what they're feeling precisely. That is entirely their job to process their own emotions, right? But the reason you're getting to hear about it is not so we can gossip about what their childhood may have been like or what their partner allows in their relationship or anything like that. It's so that we can say to you, you are observing this person. This person is in this level of extremity with something. It's not our job to decide what. And we are in a position to help them out, or to at least understand that dynamic in a way that they may not be as conscious of. Because if you're on this channel, likely you're magical or spiritual or something. And if you're magical or spiritual or something, more than likely, in one way or another, you are a healer. Another thing that happened on that trip when I heard that song is that someone told me I was a healer, and I had a really adverse reaction. Because I did not see myself doing energy work. I did not see myself following in the footsteps of certain people around me that were healers, like in a literal sense. And I didn't know where I stood on faith healing, having experienced it through the health market, shall we say. And I took it literally, and I was like, nah, you don't know me, bro. You don't know me. Lo and behold, a couple of decades later, or whatever it is, I am a healer. I heal through these readings. I heal through art. I heal through conversations with people that I have when they're in a tough time and they somehow know to come to me even if they don't know what my job is. I heal through the way that I dress sometimes and things like that. It doesn't have to be this literal thing, but I feel like you are a healing element to this person in whatever way. You, like me, may have Cancerian placement and be a nurturing energy, or at least a safe space where if somebody else does need to go off, or if they do need to let out these emotions in a safe zone or in a way that they've never been able to do, you might be the person they can do that around. I know I've been that person for quite a few people in my past, right? And that's not me bragging, because I've also received that from a few people, and some of you may even be watching, and I love you. But yeah, there's this kind of, we're not talking about all of this to mind read, because that in its own right is like a mental health thing, and we don't want to do that. But what we are doing is understanding the kinds of processes that this individual may be going through, so that we can do our best to help them once they're ready to communicate whatever this is in their own words. And we might have more of a clue as to what those words mean in the light of this reading, if that makes sense. I hope it is making sense and coming through and stuff. to emphasize this sort of when they're ready to express energy, I was told to use my D&D die here, and we got a 5, which takes us to the 5th house, and it's very Leonic, and it's about expression, right? So for some of you, I'm hearing you might be an art therapist, or you might be somebody who provides a psychological safe space for people or whatever. And thank you for sticking around this long if that is you, and that's what we're talking about. This may even be a patient. But if it's not, and if this person isn't medicalized, I don't want to like medicalize their problems, because they may be just like emotional difficulties that they don't count as mental health difficulties, that they're not about to put like a health framework over, but that you need to know about because of your relationship to them, right? But it is about expression in whatever case, and whoever I'm speaking to, and confirm in the comments down below if this is hitting. But this is about whether they can express what it is that they're actually experiencing. And I say experiencing rather than feeling, because as we discussed, they may not be feeling their feelings. They may be having sensations moving through their body, or having weird behavioural things that they don't normally do, or experiencing trouble sleeping, or stressful thoughts, or intrusive thoughts, or just stuff that they wouldn't necessarily label as emotional, but it is this like, I'm not feeling my feelings energy. With the Queen of Diamonds in the upright, for many of you, this person kind of puts you on a pedestal. You are the Queen of Pentacles in some way. So if you are a health professional, this is like, you're a very good person to come to in that sense. You have the materiality, the pentacles, the professional expertise to be the correct person to speak to about this. For others of you, you are a mother, right? Because Queen of Pentacles can be that energy. You might be their mother, or you might be, you know, like this may be a friend of one of your children or something like that, and they feel that they could come to you with this. There's some kind of elder vibe here. You could even be younger than this person, but it's like they're putting you as an authority figure on the processing of their own emotions in a subconscious way. Because I don't think that this person necessarily even knows that this is an emotional thing consciously. But they also kind of know that you're the person to talk to about it. You may also be romantically involved with them, for many of you. And in that case, I think that this person puts you on a pedestal romantically, and that therefore, yes, they think that you would be exactly the right person to come to, because you're very good at discussing this with them, or being very nurturing, or being wonderful and understanding them. But also, in that case, I think they might not come to you directly with it, because they don't want to put you off, right? Because also this Queen of Pentacles can be like, you are so materially impressive that I don't know how to relate to you, or I don't know how to, it's very like, I'm so sorry for being so sad and stuck, I am but a lowly energy and you are the most high. And that's not a great dynamic to start on when you're helping somebody process really difficult big stuff that might be really bothering them, right? So that's to be aware of if this is romantic, however they're behaving, which may be very erratically if this is the case. I do think they put a lot of value in you, to the point where they may not come to you with this because they're just like, oh God, that'll fuck things up even more. Like I can't possibly tell them what I feel, or what I am, or what I did, or the stuff that goes through my mind at night, or the mistakes that I make, or whatever it is, you know. They may be terrified even of their own materiality, in the sense of you experiencing outward signs of how they feel on the inner. So a good example, which again is from my own experience, is I have actively pushed people away in my life who I was in love with and remain in love with because I didn't want them to know that on a particular night I had a really messy room because I wasn't doing well in the head, or that on a particular night I didn't want to be on video chat because I looked bloody awful, because I'd, you know, not groomed for a few days, not brushed my teeth, and had maybe shaved my hair in weird places or whatever, you know, like You do you, boo. But it's that kind of a thing of like the outward sign of how I was inwardly feeling would have been expressed to this person in a way that I was like, if we could possibly cover that up just for tonight, I don't feel like I'll feel like this tomorrow. So let's just stay off camera, or let's just not have them over, or let's just push them away from this subject in conversation, or let's just be a little bit defensive in this way. And actually you lose people gradually by doing that over and over again, because eventually they go, well, you're just not into it. Are you just not interested in me? Do you not want to have me around? Do you not want to talk? Do you not want to meet up? You know, what's going on? So this may be a dynamic between you. If you felt that you're concerned for this person, but you also feel a bit of resentment that they've been standoffish or weird, or you feel like they might have another party going on or something like that, know that a lot of the explanation for their behaviour right now could actually be that they don't want you to see the full extent of how they're doing, because they don't know themselves yet what it is that they're experiencing or feeling. They don't quite get it. They know something's wrong, but until they know what and know how they're going to deal with it, they're not the sort of person to like invite, hiccups again, to invite you in for a chat about it and be like, right, this is happening. I'm sorry the house is a state. I'm sorry I'm a state. If I smell bad, it's not a problem. Because, you know, I still care about you, right? Sometimes that's not a conversation you can have. And I've definitely been in space like this person where it's like, I would rather come off as an asshole right now than have the conversation where I'm stood in front of you and I look like a mess and my entire life is in ruins. And I'm like, ignore all that. I'm in love with you. It's just, it do be like that, right? Sometimes you just don't want to go through that mess. You instead want to go, oh, I'm fine. How was your day? You know? Or, oh, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Let's talk about that other thing that I would never want to talk about under other circumstances, and sweep over my life. But I think even then they're aware that that's adding up, right? If they're being evasive on the same subject again and again, I think they know that that's transmitting to you, and that you're like, why do you always want to avoid this? Or why do you always want to avoid me? And again, that can apply if you are, you know, a parent or a particularly caretaking friend, right? There's just stuff that this person is like, not there though, don't poke the bear, that strikes you as odd and is pushing you away a little bit, but actually they're kind of aware of that, and it's a push-pull, and it's adding to the extent of their feelings, right? You know how we said about this person like having things together, feeling like problem solved in some areas, and that meaning that they realise they're sad? That is this King of Pentacles to me, particularly because of who it is in this Buffy deck and in Buffy. This is the principal that she ends up with in the 7th season? Correct me down below, Buffy fans. Who is this? What season are we in? What year is it? I don't know where I am right now. But anyway, this guy, the vibe is, it's not a positive one. And yet he has a good job. He's been very successful hunting vampires for several years. He's now got a very exciting love interest in the form of Buffy Summers, right? There's a lot going for him. And yet, and you can see in his posture even on this card. So this King of Pentacles, that should be the counterpart energy to this Queen of Pentacles, by the way, it should be on an equal playing field in some senses, in terms of their gifts or their station or whatever it is. You see, you know, where it fits for you. But instead, this is like a lowered King of Pentacles. This is, I have it, but I don't have anyone to share it with. Or I have it, but it's sort of like, what's the point in having it? It makes me think of that, I can't remember it word for word, but the Chris McCandless quote from Into the Wild about, I can't remember whether he writes it or he reads it, but it's about like essentially finding that you have everything you wanted, but nobody to share it with. And you feel absolutely rotten. And that's, it's not necessarily that they don't have someone to share it with, could be, but it's more that in some areas they have checked the box that they thought was the issue. And even then, something's wrong, right? And now I'm hearing the song Case Choice, Something's Wrong, right? There was another thing musically that I wanted to upbringing. What was it, guys? It'll come forward if we need it later. But yeah, so it's like they may not be doing well in every facet of life, but I think in the area that they thought was the problem, they have removed the problem, or indeed come to the solution, or come into some form of abundance in whatever that translates as in their age group or their environment. And yet, it's still crap, right? If it wasn't crap, I think they would want to be moving. I think they would want some kind of momentum. Cordelia is very, like, whatever else you can say about her possible kind of semi-teenage selfishness, you can say that she knows what she wants and she's ready to chase after it. And indeed, once she moves to LA, she becomes a valuable asset to Angel in his series and all that sort of stuff. And she's in good communication networks here with the phone. Obviously, at this point in the high school, she's very popular. She stood by the bronze, the group hangout. You know, there are things. She's got the nice car, the Queen C pendant, probably, if I zoom in. It's like she's got so many things sorted and she just wants to move forward now. She wants to be a doer, right? She's not one to sit on her laurels, and she's not one to just kind of laze around and hope that other people do things for her. She's in active energy, and I think that this person would want to be in active energy, but they're not. And that's because of this feeling. Now, if this is a relationship reading, you know what that might translate to, right? You've probably seen enough tarot readings that you understand that if they're not moving forward, they can't kind of move towards you. But in a more general sense, this is just lack of momentum for this person. And notice that we have the word stuck and then a chariot over here with this despondent king. And I know it's not in reverse, but I do feel that it's like the brakes are being put on this car. The brakes are being put on this person's life. Cordelia is also an interesting figure in terms of the crystal that we got. So we got chrysocolla, but I was noticing the crosses on it. And I held them up at the beginning. I don't know whether you saw. And I've also been wearing cross jewellery all day. I have some Peter's crosses that I wear quite regularly. I've done for years. Crosses are kind of a thing for me for about a decade. But there's something in that, right? Crosses, crossroads, bargaining. Cordelia is very good at moving the pawns around the board so that she gets what it is that she's after, whether or not people think ill of her. She's actually very efficient in her own kind of a very high school way. And there's something here with crosses and crossroads about bargains. And again, with all of these crosses in the background of the King of Pentacles, my feeling is for this person, firstly, crosses may be significant in some way as to their emotional state, or they may reveal something about like what happened in the past versus what's happening now, or some kind of truth about the nature of this. I don't know, it's going to differ for people. Christianity may be a thing, crossroads may be a thing, or just the symbol of the cross in some way. It's kind of left them sad somehow. But also, it's like all of these crosses are there in the background. All of these deals have been made. All of these bargains are there. So it's almost like the contingency of this person's success in a material way, you know, perhaps professionally even, is like, okay, but I've struck up a bargain with this cross here, and this cross here, and this cross here, and this cross here. And it's like, I don't know whether this is the amount of bargains made with a particular person that compromise this person's integrity bit by bit, like gradual boundary erosion, or whether it's that these are all representative of people in this person's life that they have like a deal with of like, okay, I can give you this, but don't move too fast. Don't get too successful. Don't, you know, be cleverer than me. Don't use the money for this thing. You can move anywhere, but don't move here. Or you can be with anybody, but don't be with that person. Or, you know, any of these kinds of issues where it's like they've gone, well, in the overall bargain, I'm getting more than what it seems to be to give up that one thing. But obviously, that's all right in one circumstance, right? One bargain. My deal is, you can have this money, but don't take that specific promotion. Okay, well, I need the money more, I'll take the money. But when you've got, 10 or 100 of these decisions, all these little crosses, it's a whole goddamn graveyard of shit that you've compromised on, of boundaries that have been eroded gradually, of playing yes man to things that actually you would rather not be the case. And I think that perhaps some of what this person may be feeling, if I were to mind read, is frustration, maybe even resentment, or at least like annoyance that they have bargained away so much of themselves to get what in the end has not emotionally fulfilled them. So take that as you need to. And again, we're not projecting on a situation that we don't know from the horse's mouth. But if this sad person is you probably know what I'm referring to, right? And if this is a person that you are really close to, like parent-child close or spouse close or something like that, then I think you can understand where this might be cropping up, or I think you can bear it in mind for when they're more able to communicate things. And maybe even you might be the person to say, hey, it seems like boundaries are on your mind right now, or it seems like you've taken this really amazing thing, but in doing so you've bargained away some of your time or energy or resources, or you've promised something that actually you've realised you don't want to give. And that is stalling their momentum. I think possibly because as well, it's like, yes, they have guilt for being sad and stuck. Yes, they have unprocessed emotions. But they also kind of have a realisation that to uncross these crosses or to undo these bargains is nigh impossible without causing something to stop them in their tracks, right? The car is parked outside the bronze. In order to turn it round, for those who are absolute fangirls like I am, you know the alleyway that the bronze is in, right? If you're going to park outside the door of the bronze rather than in the nearby car parking area, you're going to have to do like a 20-point turn to get anywhere. And I know that this is appropriate for the imagery in the card. It's very well expressed. This isn't me like throwing shade on the person who designed these, but also in a very literal way, for Cordelia to get out of the place her car is parked and move again, she has to do some really inconvenient stuff that will make people around her go, well, why the fuck did you do that anyway? Why did you make that bargain? Why did you park your car long ways in a very tight alleyway when you might need to drive away from a vampire pretty soon? It's that sort of a thing of like, there's almost a thing of feeling a bit silly in this, or feeling stupid, or feeling like part of the self-blame or the shame that this person seems to be experiencing a little bit. It's like, yeah, and it was me that made all those bargains, so I can't unmake them now or I'll look like a twat. Or it was me who sort of gave all these things, and they're not things I can get back. They're things like money that I gave to other people, or time I can't get back, or an energetic investment into perhaps a dynamic or something like that I can't retrieve from a set of people. It's like there's no going back now. There's no doing the 20-point turn. You're parked. The demon is coming. And the getaway car is no longer your solution, so you just have to run, It's not as extreme as all that, and certainly I don't mean literal demons. I'm talking about the deck, but there's this feeling for them of like, in order to kind of get unstuck, I'd have to admit that some of this was me getting stuck myself, or like sacrificing certain things for other things that maybe weren't of that much value. And I see that now. And then here we've got a Knight of Chalices with Spike in his youth in reverse. The first thing I got with this, like obviously King of Cups in reverse can also be an iteration of this message of like a romantic offer that isn't given, or a person that can't be the knight on the white charger because they're just dealing with too much right now and they can't be sweet. They don't have the bandwidth to be giving or generous or kind, or even sometimes personable, right? And I've been that guy, and I've also known that guy. So let's empathize with this person. Sometimes you just don't have the room to be delicate with others. But the other thing coming from that is the Spike quote that I got, which was, I think someone asked him to sum something up in 5 words. It might even be Giles, I don't know. And he goes out for a walk and then thinks for a minute and goes, bitch. And it's a brilliant Spike line that says so much about his character and the dynamic in the room. And I love it, and it's obviously funny, but this is also like an indicator of somebody who will, when they're feeling charged, they might find a way to like throw in the bitch that's at the end of that 5 words and sort of go, you know what, screw you, right at the end of whatever they've said. And it's not necessarily aimed at the person that they're doing it at, right? Because if I remember rightly, he does do it to Giles, and Giles hasn't really provoked him in any way. It's just Spike being Spike, and he's a bit ornery about something else, and he's doing his Spike thing where he's like a cocky asshole, and he's just like, oh, I need to get at somebody because I feel like vampire impotence and I'm all aggy, right? But Giles is not, he doesn't deserve the out for a walk bitch. Or if it's not Giles, whoever it is doesn't deserve it, right? So there is, again, if you are a parent of this person or you are close to them in a way that they are capable of damaging you with language in any way or damaging you with their moods or anything like that, this is the universe nodding at you going, listen, we know sometimes they finish their sentence with the word bitch, or they maybe phrase things in a way that isn't the best, or they perhaps project some of what they're feeling about themselves and accuse you of it. Or they put things less than delicately because they're just at the end of their tether, right? But this is not about you. I'm now hearing Fiddler going, it's not all about you. And that's not to say that you're self-focused or self-centered or anything like that. It's to say, it's like a friendly, because Fiddler for me is like a friendly band for various reasons. It's like a friendly way of communicating. Listen, this isn't, they're not trying to get at you. They're your friend. We're all friends here. We all listen to Fiddler. It's like, it's not them throwing that in, that bit of beef at the end. It's like me trashing the room in university because I couldn't trash the other one. It's like, it's unnecessary and disproportionate, but it's not aimed at you because of anything you've done. It's just that this person is feeling like a grump at the moment. They're a cantankerous little shit sometimes, as we all are, especially me, right? So it's their frustrations with these crosses may come out in other ways that you feel are directed at you or your friends or your family and are inappropriate, and you might even have had words about that. But it's not actually about you, nor is it about whoever it is that they're bothering. And I'm not saying that everybody should just go about freely offending each other and being awful to each other. In fact, every person, can and should be responsible for their own behaviours and actions, unless they're like mentally incapacitated to the extent of a sectioning. But even when we advocate for social responsibility, there are just some days that some people are so emotionally overwhelmed that they get a bit aggy, and that's fine too, you know? It makes me think of that meme of the really angry bumblebee. He just says something like, can't talk, me angy, or something. It's really a pathetic meme, but it makes me laugh so much every time, my dude. Like, I laugh like a boomer with a kitten with a caption on my wall. It just gets me, because it's that bumblebee noise where I can't really say low-lying tension, kind of. It's like, you know what? I can't get at you because you've done nothing wrong, so I'm going to buzz at you, and I'm going to turn my fat bumblebee ass at you and just sulk. Which again, having a stellium in this place, it's a very Cancerian vibe, right? I'm going to turn around and just sulk at you passive aggressively is my main mode, if I'm quite honest. So if this person does have Cancerian placements, now you know, okay? Also something that it's reminded me of a conversation with a friend, a fellow student of astrology, because I am doing that formally at the moment, was saying that they had never met another Cancerian. even though they feel very drawn to the qualities in that sign and in, you know, that ascendant and all the rest of it. And I turned to this friend and said, well, it's very obvious. You've never met another Cancerian up until this point because we're at home. All the Cancerians in the back, I'm talking to you, right? You're all laughing. But if this person is like staying in their room, think of the Cancerian as the hermit crab. They're in their shell right now. And unless you offer a better shell, they're going to stay in there, right? You could spend all day offering them better shells and they'll be like, oh, what a lovely environment. I think I will go in there. But it's not going to be that they're coming out to a club or something. It's going to be that you're literally like, right, I see you've built a fort to not cry in there, passive aggressively. I've built you a bigger fort. Would you like to come with me and perhaps cry? And they'll go, is it sectioned off from the world and incredibly private? And can I grump in there as well? And you will say yes. And they will say, oh, lovely. Do you have popcorn? I'm coming over. And it's a Cancerian vibe. But if that doesn't relate on an astrological level in terms of the placement, know that this person, and indeed this Knight of Cups, may be a signifier that like they're having their alone time. And unless you can make their room but better, or their happy place but better, they're probably not coming out for a little while because they're doing the hermit crab, and that's okay. It's where they feel safe. It's where they can be safe from what they perceive of as predators, which is like the bad feelings, the bad times, right? The things we don't talk about. Until the things we don't talk about go away, and never bother my door again, I'm not leaving this bed kind of energy. And that's okay too. And sometimes that's what we need. And I think if you've been trying to push this person to venture out in a literal way, if they've sort of become a bit socially or emotionally agoraphobic, or in a figurative way, I'm not sure they're ready. And I think the deck is trying to tell us, like, no, if you want to help them, you need to come to them. You need to stand at the door of the shell and give it a knock and say, hello, I'm not going to come in unless you want me to, but just know, I know you're hermit crabbing right now, and that's cool too. I wondered if you wanted to chat about anything at all, right? That's the best way to approach this. Or indeed, if you are capable of offering a superior shell, for instance, perhaps a holiday in a log cabin where this person can go and process their emotions next to a log fire, or a tree house or a beach house, or, you know, similar, or indeed a theme park, you know, depending on the person. They may be like, well, I could be tempted to leave my shell for a bigger and better one, but only if I'm protected from all of the bad things. At which point you go, absolutely, my good man or woman or other, you are superbly protected in this, our fortress of hanging out. So these are the two things you can do, right? You can approach them at their shell from the outside and stay outside and be like, hello, darling, are you quite all right in there? Or you can give them a bigger shell to hermit crab in, and they will be grateful. And maybe also, because they'll be able to spread out in more space, you'll see the places on their little hermit crab legs that things have cut them, or they'll talk about how they feel a little bit more because they can relax a bit and just flump, you know? Okay, so that's the sitch. Let's get into kind of more resolution, and in this I dream about you too. We've got a Queen of Scythes and we've got Jenny Calendar at her desk in the IT department, which I will call that. Thank you. That was the correct term when I grew up, and it will stay that way. But she's in the IT rooms for the school with her floppy disk that carries a gypsy curse, right? Because this is 90s television. I think that what this may be alluding to a little bit is if this person is in their shell, they might be spending a lot of time online, or they might take solace in gaming, or maybe even like looking up witchcraft stuff online, if that's something that's like okay for that household and that, you know, they're into. Or they could be spending a lot of time on forums and things, talking to people with similar kinds of concerns. Again, back to the sort of reference we had at the beginning of looking at social contagion. A lot of the information about that, because it's quite an international phenomenon, is online. And particularly sort of, bizarre Reddit threads, YouTube conspiracy theorists, etc. will talk all day long about those kinds of moods in a factual way or an experiential way. So this person may have been feeling sad, Googled some stuff, and then stumbled upon like weird stuff to do with feeling ways. I'm not going to go further with that, because if you don't know what all of that stuff is, I don't want to panic you or get you to look it up. Partly because for some of it, you may be put on some kind of weird list. Just ignore me. My weirdos know what I'm on about. But yes, Jenny Calendar, and she's in her like professional place here. And with it being a Queen of Swords, she is quite in control of that environment. So I feel like, again, there's this echo of like, this person might be okay at work, or this person might be okay at school, or like they might be intellectually doing well, even if they're not doing their homework or whatever, they're doing okay at that side of things, at understanding and at mastery in a sort of professional setting, whatever that is to them. However, we know that they're kind of not okay, right? And this Queen of Swords, it's also a beckoning to you of like, there needs to be more control in this, because there is an illusion of control thanks to them having control over a particular sphere. We talked about having abundance in one area of their life, and not necessarily in all areas, or having it there and not understanding where they're still unhappy. And this is very much like Jenny Calendar is happy in the computer rooms, but also she's carrying a disc with a curse that could seriously mess up a lot of things, and massive spoilers for a series probably older than you are, but that could end her life, and eventually does, right? The disc that she's carrying has a curse on it, which can cure somebody, which can set about a chain of events as a kind of threat that gets her killed off. So it's like, again, there is no life or death in this, right? I'm not using that example for that. What I'm saying is that there's an illusion for this person that they're at the helm of their particular ship because of the things that they're already good at. And what is actually the case is that things may be way in over their head with other stuff, right? In the way that like all of this stuff with Jenny here is foreshadowing of a kind of upsetting conclusion. That's not to say that this reading says anything bad will happen to that person, right? I'm not here to predict a downfall or anything. I'm really not seeing that in the cards. What I am saying is that part of how this person stops themselves from feeling overwhelmed is to remind themselves of the areas in which they're already very secure and very good. And for this particular person, that may be professionally and religiously, because she's translating the curse on the disc, because she's very adept, she uses that cheesy 90s wonderful term, techno-pagan, right? Because Wicca has kind of just happened and everybody's on the pagan bandwagon and loving it, and also, software is now a thing. So I love techno-pagan. I love it in Buffy. I love it in the X-Files. I love it wherever else it crops up. Hit me up in the comments with your techno-pagan movie recommendations. I am all over that shit. But there's something in that about like a religious expertise that she has, right? She is, by her particular lineage in the show, she knows a lot about stuff to do with magical curse work or lifting curses, or, why particular lineages may be cursed, etc. So something that may even be an ancestral nod, right? There may be something to do with family that's involved in all of this. But also I feel like this person is comfortable in the realm of what they believe, and comfortable in the realm of what they do for a living or can provide, even if that's like they can get by in class, even if they're not doing their homework, or they can get by really well at work, even if actually they're not fulfilled. There's something in that with them. Then we've got the Fool, which is coming up as a kind of semi-solution card with this. And you'll see Xander kind of going into the graveyard to, the cemetery, to go slaying with Buffy at night to protect the town. And he is rushing in like a fool and is representative of the fool because of the way his character is, because he's quite naive, because he's quite jokey. He's quite a fun, but also not too responsible energy. So there may be an aspect of this person that is like class clown vibe, or they can tell a really good joke in order to deflect this stuff when needed, or they can be really personable, a really good networker, really jovial, in order to kind of distract from what's going on at home, or like at home in the mind sense, right? In the Cancerian home, the sort of emotional well-being. And you'll notice as well with Xander, again for the diehards, you only get like inklings about his home life for a good couple of seasons, maybe even like 3 seasons. But then when you do find out about his home life, it's really dire, right? And it's kind of shocking because he's the guy in the loud 70s shirts that's always cracking jokes and hitting on all the ladies. And it's like, how were you the guy sleeping in a sleeping bag, like having been thrown out by your caregivers in a house with no heating and no money? Like, how, so there's this kind of double-edged energy to this person that you may recognize of like, they can talk a good game, they can put on a good show, they can amuse anybody or relate to anybody, but actually there's something going on that they keep pretty private, right? And for some of you, if this is a love reading, you may not even really fully know what that is. My sense is that if this is a romantic connection, they may have told you some of it, or alluded to some of it, or like hinted and hoped you would get the picture in this standoffish Spike way. But there is a lot more to it than they have yet revealed, because this is Xander in season 1. He's still doing like schmuck moves with the ladies, trick moves with a skateboard, and all soundtracked by stuff like Lotion that sounds very optimistic, and then when you listen to the lyrics it's like, oh, actually he might not be very happy. But also that's more intellectual than it comes across, because Lotion are a band, I'm getting in deep now as a fan, but like when I think of Xander, I think of Blind for Now by Lotion, and I think of the Nobody's Cool album, which I think that's off. It's not a Telephone album. Anyway, I think of like how great the lyrics are on every fucking track of that album, but also how none of the lyrics sound like what the songs sound like, really. And that's a very sort of mid-90s New York band thing to do. But it's also a good demonstration, again, of that dynamic that we get with Xander, where it's like, yeah, I make you feel like you've gotten the whole picture, because I don't want to reveal either the extent of my own circumstances or the extent of my own intellect, right? Particularly when he wants to fit in. Xander wants to pull people like Cordy. He wants to fit in with people like the kids in the Pack episode, or later on in the Zeppo when he tries to fit in with that really dodgy guy and ends up like doing all these uncharacteristic bro things and then sort of facing the supernatural consequences of same, right? It's that energy of like, I can flex in any circle, I'm doing all right, but are you though? Are you really? So that's all coming across through this. And again, with him kind of, he's going into battle with a mace, but also with a Hawaiian shirt, which is very Xander. It's actually quite on brand for me as well, but it's this thing of like, take it light with heavy. And there's uncertainty as to whether that is from the unhealed dynamic of, I feel so deeply, let me not let on how much I'm feeling, even to myself, or whether it's the healed version of the Hawaiian shirt in a battle, the kind of Tarantino, early Tarantino vibe of, I'm having fun even though there's a gun in my hand, of somebody who has integrated both their trickstery, jokery, irreverent, irresponsible side and their fully cognizant, emotional, caretaking and emotional well-being preserving side. So somebody who can crack a joke in dire circumstances and not have it be an inappropriate joke, but have it actually be a tension reliever for everybody watching, or have it be the thing that gives them cool, right? The reason I use Tarantino movies as an example is because his early films, whatever else you can say about them, and much has been said, some of those characters are just fucking cool, right? They just have an air about them where you're like, none of this should work in combination, and yet. And that is that irreverence. It's the sprezzatura kind of quality, right? It's Johnny Knoxville, right? It's not giving a fuck, or appearing like you don't give a fuck in the final flourishes of a thing, but actually you're a complete master of your circumstance. Notice that guy never fails with a stunt, but he always looks like he doesn't know what he's fucking doing. He even dresses like he doesn't know what he's doing, and yet he's a very fashionable man, or once was. Back in my day, you know, she said in the old folks' home. So again, we're sort of further describing this person, but we're also saying the way that they're approaching this stuff. So when you're going to knock on their hermit crab shell, be aware that their way of not letting you in the room might actually be to crack a joke, or might actually be to do something very cool and appealing to you, so that you're so thrown by how cool they are that you forget to ask them why there are guns going off, in the metaphorical sense, right? Or why there's a vampire behind them, or, you know, whatever it is. So it's like this fool is rushing in, and this person feels foolish. They feel like, excuse me, again with the confirmation, I'm sorry. I wish I had a less rude sign. They're running in, and they know they can handle this, but they also don't know they can. That's another Xander vibe. So it's like, yes, I am the master of my circumstances, but am I though, really? Because I don't feel like I am, because there's something wrong and I don't know what it is and I can't feel anything. But they might even say it like that. I mean, that feels like a sentence said by that sort of person, right? So I think you're coming in a way, this is the point at which you enter, right? Because we've just been observing in the rest of this reading. It's like a Murakami floating around thing where it's like, present tense. And we see that over here there is a static television, and we see the girl is laying on the bed, and, you know, it's that kind of, we've been hovering above this, but now we're going and we're entering the picture. And the way that we're entering the picture, this person feels like a fool in front of you, whoever you are to them. They feel like you're seeing them as running in unprepared, doing the Xander thing. What I want to say about that, and that you may already know, but I'm sort of saying because you're in the picture now, is that Xander is maybe one of the most crucial characters, if not the most crucial character in Buffy, aside from herself, right? The show's named after her. But he becomes such a hinge of how other things go in both major and minor ways, right? When Willow completely unforeseeably goes off on one and becomes a big bad, it's Xander who puts her back on track, and nobody saw that coming, right? Equally, the whole trajectory of Anya and how she evolves as a character and who she comes to inspire and how she works at the magic shop and everything is all to do with Xander, whether it's initially getting revenge on Xander, or like maybe having sex with Xander, or like, am I in love with Xander? Or then Xander leaving her at the altar and being a complete schmuck. You know, all of these things that we think are just him kind of doing the foolish Xander thing and like finding his way without seemingly knowing much about where he's going, are really crucial to the direction of every other character, I want to say. Even like Spike and people like that. It's just like, how are you influencing this person now? You were self-confessed in season 1 as extremely unimportant. And yet, you know, so this person is like, they feel like nothing, but you may know that they are everything. They may be everything to you. this may even be a good thing to communicate to them right now. It could be too heavy for them. You will know for you whether they're ready to hear it. But my sense is that they feel very exposed, very class clownish, and they want to cover over that with more humour so that they don't look like they made a mistake right now, because they can't quite communicate with themselves enough to communicate effectively with other people and manage their shit. But actually, I think you see them as like the wise fool, the ascended fool, the fool in the true sense of the card, who is the only figure that can traverse the whole tarot, right? It's through Xander's incredulousness and innocence, in a way, that he can become, so crucial for everybody. And I think that you see that in this person, that maybe even when they don't understand themselves, they're still a huge influence on other people, or they're still doing a great amount of good, or they have the potential to do that. You know, we were talking about healers and not recognizing yourself as a healer. Xander is a healer. He's a harmer as well, and he has to go through some real karma about the shit he leaves in his wake by doing stupid Xander stuff. But he is someone who can transform other people. He is a catalyzing element. And I think you see this person as that. And as you enter this space, as they're sort of venturing out of their hermit shell and into the cemetery to join their friends, right? Very, very weird context if you haven't seen the show, but whatever. They're going out with their mates, right? But they're also fighting evil. Evil in inverted commas, right? The evils of the world. You are seeing how powerful they are, and you are therefore a correct person to come over to them once they're ready and express that power and say, hey, I know you feel a little bit stupid sometimes, or you feel a little bit big or exposed, or you feel like you don't really know yourself, so how could you be of use to other people? But you mean the world to me, and I think you can mean the world to everybody else, and I think you're amazing and capable and occasionally wise and incredibly funny and fun, and you bring a vibration to others that can't be accessed any other way and is truly healing, because that's what Xander is, right? Love him or hate him, it's kind of a fact, and that's what this person is to you. But I feel whoever you are, whether it's just how articulate you are, whether it's how you know the person, there's something about this that, like, you're the only person who can say it. And I know firsthand how difficult it is to tell an upset person, a kind of minotaur of a person in that moment, that you love them and they're worth the world and they're going to be fine. Because a lot of the time when they're in that minotaur energy, when they are raging and bullying a china shop, or they're acting the fool, they're not ready to hear it, and they might actually lash out, or you might end up at the sharp end of the horn, you know, or at least with this out for a walk, bitch, passive-aggressive stuff thrown at you. But it doesn't make it any less worth saying. And I can tell you now, as someone who's had that conversation with someone very upset at the time, very volatile at the time, I don't regret saying it, you know? You never regret telling somebody that they're loved and powerful. And if you take anything from this reading, that's what it is. And if it's you, if you're Xander, all this shit, like, rewind. I was talking about you and you are that powerful. And this isn't coming from me because I don't know you. This is coming from what I get my messaging from, you know, be that God or spirit or whatever it is that you believe. I believe it's a whole host of things. Emphasis on the word host. But let this be your permission slip to live your life with a bit of self-care and a bit of acknowledgement to this emotional fuzziness being okay, because you are okay. You are worthwhile. You may even be in a supporting position to this person and still need to know that you are also worthwhile, my dear audience, because you are. And if this person is capable of so much and needs a bit of a helping hand emotionally at the moment, and you are the person to give that to them, then let me be an emotional helping hand to you in saying you are the only person who can deliver your message, just as they are the only person that can deliver theirs, and thus you are equally important. Remember, we had a Queen of Pentacles and a King of Pentacles, not related to gender at all, so flip it as you need to, or make them the same as you need to, or whatever. But this is an equilibrium of energetics. So if this is your child and you love them, but you almost don't feel capable of supporting them, what you feel about them is true of you, right? Objectively, from spirit. The amount that you love them is the amount that whatever you believe in, God or whatever, cares for you. And the worth that you see in them is the worth that you have. And with that, how could you fail to support them, right? Equally, if this is a partner that's been incredibly difficult, maybe even like a twin flame thing over a long period, what you feel they are in the world to other people and who you feel they either are or can be is exactly what you're capable of. And that's why you're seeing it. It's a mirror, right? Spoiler alert, the extra divination that I'm doing today in my kind of let's chuck the tarot and do something else is mirror work. Not just because of this like mirror work Louise Hay house thing, but also because you are a mirror of this person's strength. So it's time for you to realize your own strength, be strong, and come to them and say, hey, I know you're feeling awful. I love you. Tell me all about it. Let me help you. As I'm saying that, I don't know whether you can hear that, but in the background, the rain it's just come out of nowhere and it's very intense. So this is like a storm, right? That you're helping them through. And it's also like a torrent of emotion. It may be a kind of floodgates, right? Because the expression over here is the heavens opened. And it really does sound like that. It's gone from being very warm, still night to just whoosh and rain, heavy rain, right? It's louder than my like fake rain in my intro. And I think that's when you have this conversation with this person, when they're ready, when they've come out of the hermit crab shell and they want to speak about it, you may experience a bit of a floodgate emotionally, both of your emotions and theirs, depending on what your relationship is, whether it's professional or personal. And that's okay. That's part of it, right? The rain, the thunder, all of it, it's good. It's good thunder. And what more could we wish for each other than good thunder, good rain? Especially after a dry spell for some of you. Okay, so then we have the Hierophant. And we have Giles sort of looking to Xander, right? I feel this is you, however you identify, you know, disregard that, sorry. The Hierophant is about conformity, commitment, doing things the way they're done. It can be about structure, it can be about authority figures, it can be about religious affiliations of those things. It's a guardian, it's a guide, it's the officiant of a marriage. It's like a protective, fatherly thing, but it's not dad vibes necessarily. It's like mentor or priest or I want to say like youth worker, you know, like I don't know whether any of you have the experience of being in religious schools and going on a retreat or something, and there's always like the trendy international youth worker that's come in and they're doing they're either doing pilgrimage or they're like on mission work from wherever. I remember it distinctly because I used to really fancy my Eldon. If you're out there, you were so hot. I don't know why I'm saying that, but it's this kind of like, they're too cool to be one of the teachers or the actual pastors or anything like that. They're too cool to be one of the parents, but they're just authoritarian enough that actually if you wanted to sit down with them and tell them your problems, maybe they could offer some excellent, perhaps religiously or scholastically inflected advice, right? It's like good guidance counselor energy. If you weren't in a maniacally religious school like I was, it's just like, you go to the guidance counsellor to talk to them about stuff, but it turns out they're not a dick. They're really cool. And you're like, oh, I can talk to you. Great. I'm going to offload all this stuff, right? That's kind of the Hierophant energy in this context. And as well, because with Giles, like he's so stuffy and tweedish and very British, and we are a bit like that, you know, we're a bit sort of stick up our arse for a while. And he seems very official, and he seems like he's very conformist, and he's part of an extremely, you know, patriarchal, colonial, uppity group of men in tweed who are also all rich, who do these very strict things. But actually, again, the more his character unfolds, the more you realise, no, he's like an ex-con, ex-magician, ex-punk, who's really nice and just super intelligent, and kind of got in with all of these guys because he realised he was a watcher and you can't change fate, right? So he becomes this like, he's never an edgelord in the way that Spike is, but he becomes kind of the cool dad, or like, I don't know, that's doing him an injustice really, isn't it? Because he's not quite as stuffy as all that, but he becomes a ripper, shall we say. He's had a past that's a bit like, oh, that's a little spicy. Smashing windows, were we? Having sex in the street, were we? I say, you know, and it's sort of gradually drip fed. It's a big reveal. And I think, like, I don't want to put you in that camp of you're stuffy now, but also you're an ex-con. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you may have that cool guidance counselor energy, or you may be like the attractive person who is also super wise and who is a bit of an authority figure for this person, but also in like a way that they do relate to. Like if you're a parent, you didn't hear this from me, but you're the cool parent, you know? Or if you are a romantic interest, they perhaps see you as a pillar of the community type who's got a lot of status or a good reputation under your belt in terms of the community, and you're standing professionally and all that. But also they know that privately you can be a right one, and they're down for that. It's a good juxtaposition to have in a partner, I feel. So that's Giles's energy, and he's looking towards Xander as like this sort of almost mentor, but not really, because you're kind of on an equal level. It's just one of you is coming in and saying, hey, you know, you're having a bad time, aren't you? I can see it, and putting yourself temporarily into that authoritarian role. And I say authoritarian as well because it looks to me between these two cards like Giles is saying, don't stay out too late. Or he's saying like, yeah, go off, I can trust you. I know the Hawaiian shirt is a cover and that actually you're really good with that mace, but just make sure you're back by curfew. Or like the phrase I heard in my head from Spirit was, make sure you're back in the library before the world ends, right? And I don't think that's a direct quote. I think that's just like an expression of, you do you, boo, but also make sure that you do adhere to how things are done in a more general way. So I think part of the reason this is coming through as Giles energy from you is like, you're allowing this person freedom of emotional expression to be who they are and to communicate with you on the level that feels safe and comfortable and doable for them when there's a lot going on mentally, right? But you're also putting enough structure in there to be like, listen, we could talk about this all night, but also there's a way that things are done and you need to take care of the functionality of it. So if this person, for example, is a colleague, it's like you're lending them an ear for a good day and you're going out and doing all kinds of fun things and they're talking and opening up and getting better. But also you're like, and the project deadline is still Tuesday. Can we also talk about that? Or like you're a parent who's talking to your kid and saying, can we communicate about this? Are you okay? And being really, really good with them, but then also saying, I've got my eye on you there, make sure your homework's finished, or make sure you're eating healthy, or, you know, whatever it is, so that you know their functionality is retained. Because I feel like at the moment for this person, their overwhelmed status is like teetering into, we're not quite functioning at full capacity right now. We're maybe not the cleanest. We're maybe not the tidiest. We're maybe not on top of projects. We're maybe not being the kindest to the people we actually do love. And that needs checking in. And I think you're a good person to do that because they do look up to you. But also offering them a safe space to sort of go, oh God, I don't even know how I feel. And just letting them, what's the word? Letting the free association come for them of how they want to talk about this. Not even labeling it as an emotional thing, but just being like, hey, I notice a difference in you. Like, are you experiencing anything right now? You know, like what's going on there? And not in an accusatory way, but just in a way of like, what do you see happening right now? Because I get a picture of it. If they come to you and ask you a picture of it, it may even be useful to tell them as a translation, like what they experience of you, like what they see, what you're seeing in their behaviours that's unusual, or what the perspective is like from the outside, because they may be locked in their head right now. But if they're not coming to you and asking for that, because of this stagnancy that already exists with this chariot and this stork, I don't think you should tell them how they are, right? I think the last thing any of us would want if we're feeling really emotionally overwhelmed, whether we're conscious of emotions or not, is for someone to come to us and describe us to ourselves, you know, or describe our behaviours. So it's that fine line of like, I'm here for you to talk about whatever you want to talk about, or just let's shoot the shit if that feels less threatening to them. But also, you know, are you on top of stuff? Do you need help with anything in that sense? In a non-shaming way, is there like stuff I can help out with? Is there like something that hasn't been done that needs to be talked about with someone higher up or anything like that, right? So again, this whole reading so far is you kind of coming in, understanding where they're at and going, yeah, I get it, you know? And just being a safe space for them, really, to process the stuff at the pace that they feel ready for, but also knowing from this reading and from bits that you will have picked up throughout it, the extent to which stuff's going to frighten them or trigger you, or the mechanisms by which they will avoid certain things, or the thing that they're afraid of happening, or whatever, right? You're getting it. I dream about you too. So, for those of you who've been waiting, for those who wanted a love reading, yes, this person dreams about you too. This is confirmation that they feel exactly how you do. What you see in them is what they see in you. The future that you want perhaps with them is what they want with you. Right now, it's just the dreaming, okay? Because no matter how much you want to move this car out of its space right now and gain momentum together because you share a dream, this person is still fighting some battles that you can't understand, which is a very Buffy feeling, isn't it? It's like, I'm dealing with demons, literal and otherwise, that the rest of the world doesn't always have to experience or can't possibly kind of get head round. Or wouldn't believe, right? A lot of Buffy is about really horrendous stuff happening and not being believed, or people not giving you the right to do what it is that you do by calling because they just don't believe anyone could do that sort of stuff. So this may all relate. At the moment, I don't feel that this person has the emotional bandwidth to make this anything more than a dream. I'm telling you that you share the dream so that you can know that down the way, when they're feeling better, and maybe even when you're feeling better, this can happen. But right now, asking them whether they dream about you too is not what you want to do, okay? It's going to be too much pressure. And I think that's why it's wanting to come out. It's like wanting to soothe you as confirmation, like, yes, they're into you, they want the same things. But it's also saying, don't push that agenda, because what needs to happen right now is this person's healing. And for some of you, a minority of you, that means leaving them alone until they're ready to come out of their hermit crab energy, right? And that you may have had to leave them alone for a long time. As I say, some of you will be on the twin flame journey, and some of us can go months or years without contact from a person because they're doing a bit of this. and they're kind of uncrossing their crosses and understanding themselves a little better and feeling safe with change and all the rest of it, as are we in the mirror, right? So if you've been waiting a long time and you were looking for a reading that says, go, 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 I'm sorry, but that's not it. What I can tell you is that if you do truly care about this person, it's less important pushing the agenda of being with them right now, and more important to check in and make sure they're all right. And I think you got the gist of that, but I want to reiterate it to say, again, with the fiddler thing, this isn't about you, or this isn't about you as a couple, as a unit. This is about them going through some stuff that enables them to be a unit in the future, right? And if you feel frustrated with kind of waiting around for the dream to become reality, perhaps you're not ready to come and be this Giles figure for them yet. Perhaps it's that you need to leave them to it for a moment and just understand what's going on. Because unless you can come to them without offering pressure, you're not going to be able to come into union with them. And I would even argue that unless you can come to them without a little bit of resentment that you're not together yet, you're probably not ready to be with them or be a part of a couple in general, right? And I know that's hard because I'm in that space right now of like trying to heal how I feel about some stuff for it to even happen. But that, you know, for some of you, that's the case. And I'm sorry that I had to bear the mixed news on that. But on the plus side, everything you're feeling, I think they are. It's just that right now they can't access their feelings because there's some other stuff that they need to shove down on top of everything else, you know what I mean? These roses, I promise you they have been watered, but I keep touching like crispy elements of them and looking at this one that looks like it's dying off, even though it's not. And I feel like that's it. It's like let the dead die, or let the parts of the relationship that need to fall away completely. Maybe surrender the whole thing for a little while healing happens. And then when this person feels ready to come out of their shell, you can first have the conversation about how they are, and then have the conversation about like, listen, you know, I love you. Are we going to do this, right? Because there's a difference between saying, I care about you, I want to help, and all the things we said earlier about how powerful they are, versus saying, I love you and I demand such and such, right? It's a different conversation to say, you are my world, let me help you. And then maybe down the line, I might want to be together. Versus, you are my world, let me help you also, when are you taking me out for a date? Do you see the distinction? Made that mistake myself a couple of times in the past. Anywho, if you weren't here for a love reading, this I dream about you too. It may be an indicator that this person's literally having bad sleep, and that's another sort of confirmation when you talk to them that this is that situation and all the rest of it. Or that maybe even you can assist with their sleep if they're a spouse or something like that. Pop in valerian oil nearby on the pillow or something, rather than ingestion, by the way. Don't ingest. Or like having soothing music on, or guided meditations, particularly by Michael Seeley, are brilliant if you can't sleep. And I say that as someone who went through an entire child court protection case, which was extremely hideous and stressful, and couldn't sleep for months. And Michael Seeley was the only thing that could get me there. So, you know, hot recommendation. But, you know, all of that stuff, fantastic, helpful. If you're in a position to help a person to sleep in that way, or drawing them a bath or whatever it is, great. But this is also like, I dream about you too, in the sense of they have a shared vision for this relationship in the same way as they might if it was a romantic one. You know, if it's a parent-child thing, they have the same vision for their future that you wanted for them. Or if it's a colleague thing, they want to work with you as much as you want to work with them. If it's a friendship thing, they want to stay close to you in the same way you want to be close. They want to have fun, same way you do. There is something here about like you share a dream, but pushing that dream or pushing the agenda of how it is that you know them or relate to them is going to be really antithetical to the real purposes of this conversation right now, and is different again from telling them you love them, which is like a supportive act, versus pressuring them with love. Yeah, this is my card of kind of know the difference. So color wise, we got copper and red neon. Copper, I think, is a metallicized version of, well, it's the metallic of red orange. So you're taking red orange energy and reflecting it back or deflecting it to the world. So this can speak to you or them, but there is something being deflected back to the outside world here that is coming from a red orange core. Now, rather than describe that red orange core to you, I am going to self-promote in a rare moment on here where I say that another reading is not just slightly recommended, but actually might be a must for you. If you're drawn to the copper rather than the red neon in these colours, go back to my spectral readings and look at the red orange reading I did in lockdown. Pick a pile. They're all long readings. There's 3 options. They won't be as long-winded as this, I promise. And whatever you relate to in that option for red orange is the thing that has been metallicized or reflected outwards in this situation. If you don't want to do that, if you're bored of my voice, if you don't want to watch an extra video, if you don't have time, if copper isn't your colour, ignore that, it's fine. But those of you who are drawn to copper in particular of those colours, or who are like, yeah, I want more content from you, that's where you go. Go to the spectral playlist, go to the red orange reading and pick your pile, okay? Then with the red neon, red is often about energy. It's the thing we see first. It can be about a state of emergency, which I think is like what we've been describing in a sort of emotional way. But it can also be about things emerging and being visible because it is that first colour. It's the, spectrally, it's like the first wave that hits the eye, which is why, you know, a lot of danger signs and things are in red because we see them very clearly. Or like we think of red lights going off as an alarm system because we're going to see that, right? And that's what red is. It's like it's first in. And then neons tend to be, well, they can be many things, but for this reading, it's reiterating emergency transmission. It's the kind of whoop, whoop, whoop. So this is basically speaking to the urgency of the situation. Now, I want to say as well, because red is aggression, I'm not accusing this person of being aggressive, by the way. I'm saying don't be too aggressive in your approach to this. And I'm also, red can be kind of aggy energy. And we talked about the angry bee. And it is that, but red is also me like not wanting to put a red flag to you when I say, this is an emergency. Your relationship to this person is not. Yeah? So again, this red neon, what it communicates to me is a reiteration of the point that if you truly care about them, having a long process of them coming to terms with their own well-being and healing themselves is more important right now than them reassuring you that they're okay or that you guys are okay. Again, hiccups. So take the love you have for them or the respect you have for them or whatever it is and imagine yourself in this Giles position and do what Giles would do if you're familiar with the character, or just kind of go into that guidance counselor-y but cool mode and be irreverent with them but also be helpful and have the goal of the conversation be to help them and not to further whatever your interests are or whatever the interests of the dynamic are, right? If you're a parent, for example, it is more important right now that you see to your child working through their own emotional stuff and learning how to feel difficult feelings than it is that you make sure that they always clean their room and have their homework done on time and are performing nicely for all the neighbours. You know what I mean? Like, going back to the tearaway energy that we sort of started with, of me being grumpy on a retreat, there is a caution here about labeling them as too wild, right? Or as a tearaway, or as unmanageable in some fashion, particularly where those labels are exchanged with other people who they may not consent you to talk about that with. They're going through a really difficult point. You know, however old they are, however stable they appear to be, there's some stuff right now that is being really heavily repressed, and it's quite hard stuff. And like I said at the beginning, it's not for us to mind read exactly what that is, because it's their thing to express. But it may mean that they're not behaving as they normally do. And I want you to put their recovery above their behaviour, which I know is tough. I've dealt with addicts, I understand. But prioritise them healing over them being well behaved, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you can leave me at this point, or you can stay for further info, but I am going to do mirror gazing. I am a person who can, who discovered at a formative age that they can stare into a mirror and change their own image in order to receive messages visually or with the other clairs. I have done this before on the channel, but I've never done it for this format of reading. So I hope you'll excuse it if you did see the one mirror reading session that I did. Your image on here is not going to change, so feel free to, you know, clear your kitchen, drive your car, whatever you're doing. But I'm just going to stare into a mirror that's opposite me at the moment and see if I can morph into, you know, I've got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in my head now. See if I can change my own image to communicate to you what is needing to be heard. Okay, so my eyes are getting bigger than is proportionate, which is, it's like a double meaning. So when they get this big, please ignore the weirdness of what this is and just take it. When my eyes get this big off my face, this is either somebody trying to have puppy eyes, because they look quite adorable when they're out of proportion like that. So this person may try to sort of switch on the puppy dog eyes with you a bit to maybe excuse some bad behaviour, or they might try and sort of love bomb a little smidge to sort of cover over some stuff they said or did. It's a puppy vibe, definitely. But the other thing of having eyes that big is that actually they kind of, there's a resistance with them to the idea that you can see into them, right? So they may literally avoid eye contact with you quite a bit. That is more to do with this energy that they're pushing down from whatever emotional experiences they've had than it is to do with you, right? They're not looking away from you. They're looking away from being seen having these emotions at the moment. And something that I should have said earlier, which I now want to say, is if you are a parent and you're like, why is this person emotionally damaged? I raised them well. I provided a nurturing environment. Know that no matter what you do, there's always stuff going on that isn't on you, right? So this isn't to say that you have made them fearful of certain emotions in your environment or anything like that. It could be school, it could be friends, it could be something someone once said in a movie that's affected them the whole life, right? We don't have control of everything. Sometimes we have to let go. And I feel like it's now my place to say, if you survive this long through reading, firstly, thank you. And also, it's not on you, but you may need to be the person to help them with it. Okay, who wants to come through? I'm seeing a person now. They have, this may be ancestral for some of you. There's I want to say like a mole or a beauty mark or a wart or something, literally in the center of the forehead of the person that I'm seeing. It's not like a painted mark, like a religious mark. It's an actual, you know, it's unique to that person. It's like a born with thing. So there may be somebody in your lineage who has like an unusual birthmark or mole or something right in the center of their forehead. It's like really obvious to me right now. This could also be an indication for those that don't resonate with that. It's like tap into your crown when you're dealing with this person, because the conversation could be difficult. And if you are a practitioner, know that there could be like parasite stuff involved around them that are sort of feeding off this energy a little bit, and you will, if you are a practitioner, you'll know how to deal with that, right? And if you're not, don't panic about it. It's just a thing. It happens. You can see them in cinemas and supermarkets and all sorts. They're harmless, right? But for those in the know, there is a parasite attached to this bit, and the way to deal with that is to make sure you're really locked into your crown energy before you go in, and that you have asked for help or channeled through your crown before entering their space, so that you don't also, you're impervious to any energies that might be floating about, yeah? I'm seeing the circles under my eyes get really vivid. So again, with the sleepless nights, but that might be you as well. If you're watching this late at night, after this, get some cape, yeah? Or make sure you're in some kind of routine with that. Now, one of my eyes is, oh, one half of my face is someone. That's interesting. Oh, wow. It always kind of, like, I know it's okay when it happens, but it's also like really weird. I can't even describe to you, my dude, what it is like to look into a mirror and see another person. And I'm recording this live. And it's not possession, by the way, for anyone freaking out. This is all heavily protected, warded, consenting stuff happening right now. But what do you want to say? Okay, I'm seeing someone who wants to call themselves the mothers of my mothers. So this is like maternal line ancestry, or if you identify with being a femme practitioner or a female practitioner, this is something to do with like your ooh. Hold up, guys. This person looks really upset, like angry and sad. So this is a split down the middle message. For some of you, you are a practitioner in a traditional setup and you have direct lineage with someone who was involved in the witch trials. Bear in mind, that doesn't mean Salem necessarily. This was happening all over Europe as well, in a considerably bigger way, actually. So if you're connected to any of those regions, there is an ancestral feminine that wants to come through and help you with this. Yeah, that's correct, apparently. And if you don't resonate with that, if you have no European or Salem related ancestry and you're not a practitioner or anything like that, there's something here about, what is this? About this thing from this person is a passed down thing. Like the emotional repression stuff is to do with what somebody more scaremongering on the internet might call an ancestral curse. I don't mean that in a literal sense, but things like patterns of how people have children, how people relate to each other, cluster B type stuff, mental health issues in a literal sense, or in a physical sense, should I say. Stuff like that can be passed down through the maternal line. And for some of you, that's what's going on here. And this is a woman from way, way back. How many? At least 4 generations back, who's saying that part of this person's emotional stuff is that they're breaking a pattern, and you are helping them with that. And if you need further help, you can call on this woman, right? Even if you don't know her name, you just say, the mothers of my mothers, help me out, right? they're telling me that somebody along the line was extremely angry. This wasn't the thing that was passed on. This is an anger that they received, because I'm now seeing them with like a really black eye, and they look like they've been, yeah, they look like some domestic stuff was involved there, or some kind of physical punitive stuff. For some of you, I think it's the red-orange reading that I said, but there is some ancestral stuff about being kept as well. And you'll know what I mean by that if you hit on that reading. But there's something here about receiving somebody else's anger that went on more than 4 generations back and keeps kind of repeating itself. And if this person you're dealing with, or if you are adopted, or you don't know your family or something like that, just know that this is still like a recurring pattern, that this reading is like referring to the dynamic that will break that pattern. And if you resonate with the idea that this person hasn't told you everything yet, some of what they might have to tell you might be to do with being the receptacle for somebody else's anger, whether that's in one incident or whether it's over a repeated period. And that, yeah, I'm getting weird vision now because that goes way back, way back. And I'm now seeing a masculine who was doing that, and I prefer not to see him actually. Thanks, guys. But yeah, that's, wow. Woo. And my body lit up when he was taken away. So it, you know, that it's not an energy that's present now. It's not like a haunting kind of a thing. It's just expressing to me, because there is a pattern of a certain dynamic where someone gets angry and another person blocks how they feel, right? And that's repeating for either you or this person. It may be that it's repeating for you unrelated to this person, and it's just that you needed to hear that. I don't know. But there's something about calling on these mothers of your mothers. Or maybe even there's something in your own like immediate maternal stuff about this. But for many of you, I saw a man doing this to a woman, whether it was a spouse or someone else. I don't want him back, guys. Take him out. He's very persistent. Right. Yeah. Okay, we're good. Sorry, he was trying to show himself, and it's not that he was any danger or anything like that, but I did not like being in that energy or receiving it. And we know enough to know, like, he used to get angry, and there was a woman who suffered for it, and that's kind of continued through different sets of people. So that's all we need to know about him, and I thank him for his time, and I send him away. And the mothers of my mothers, I think that's all they had to say, so I send them away too. Does anyone else want to chat or show me anything or give me any sensations or anything like that? Okay, now I've got one of my ears that looks like it's dissolving in the mirror. And at the same time, I'm having trouble hearing through that side, or there's like a weird numbness. And I'm remembering the proverb, left for love, right for spite, right? And it's in my right ear. So there's something here about this person overhearing not so nice conversations about them, right? It doesn't have to be spite, but they've heard somebody talk about them in a less than flattering way. And it's almost like they've dissolved the experience of ever hearing that thing, or they've gone numb to listening, or there's something about not wanting to hear anything anymore because of that. So if you've been discussing this person out of concern with other people, be very careful that they're not able to hear you in some way. Yeah, I got stuff at the back of my neck with that, so that's a confirmation. And if it's not that they've overheard you saying anything, or indeed you wouldn't say anything sort of negative about their current state or their current behaviours, there's something in this person's emotional processing about like it would be good when they're ready to open up in terms of asking them about, has anybody said anything that you've heard that you found upsetting? Because I feel like that whole right side of hearing is just cut off now. And I'm now getting, they're sending me chills up my right side of like, yeah, confirmation stuff. Okay. Right, I'd like to see stuff rather than feel it now. So is there anything else you want me to see? Are any other people I normally work with in this kind of vision around without naming names? Because that'd be exciting. Yes. Immediately, the one that I like to see has come through. Hi. Okay, what do you want to tell me? I'm hearing 3 words from this guy. Recipient, receptacle, key. Okay. Let me go in further on that. What do you mean? Don't be cryptic with me. Got no time for your shit today. Sorry, I can talk to this guy like that, it's fine. He's not from the ascended. I could chat shit to him. My nose. Oh, the nose. Right, got you. Recipient, receptacle, key. Okay, right. There is an awareness in this person that if they have been the recipient of somebody else's emotions, be they anger or otherwise, right? Because remember, we're talking emotional transference. It doesn't have to be just anger. But if they've received emotion from someone else that has meant that they couldn't express their own, you are seeing this reading, whenever you stumble on it, at a time that they are ready to acknowledge that they are the recipient, but that they won't be the receptacle. They won't hold that emotion for someone else. There is a nod from one thing or another to my brief training with a certain Native American paradigm, an indigenous paradigm, I should say, where there is stuff in there about holding emotion with the body, right? And the body's function as a receptacle for stuff that can't be materially expressed for a person. So really what it is that, like, if somebody else has thrown this person their anger or sadness or stuckness or jealousy or fear or whatever it is, they may have received that, they may have internalized it. Sorry for the mic there. But they are no longer the bowl that will contain that stuff. And for some of you, if it's been affecting their health, I think they're coming to the point of realization where it's not going to anymore, because they're somehow realizing, consciously or unconsciously, or even like on the 5D, if you believe in that, that they're not willing to hold somebody else's energy in part of their physical body energy, right? So they're not going to turn somebody else's feelings about stuff into a condition of their body, is what I'm saying. They're getting that connection, they're seeing it, or they're not seeing it, that's the wrong word, but they're understanding on some level, like, you can throw this at me and you can project this stuff at me that's not yours, but I'm not going to let it affect my physical or mental health any longer because it's not mine. I will acknowledge it and I will receive it in the sense that I don't push it back to you or I don't blow up, but I'm not going to hold it. I'm not going to like carry it for you. Does that make sense? Like, so if this is like with the hearing thing, if this is something they've heard, I don't know, from an authority figure or from somebody in passing about them or something, they may now be acknowledging that what they heard is not necessarily the truth, so much as that person's truth that was being thrown out and at them, right? And they're not willing to hold it anymore, or they're not going to let it damage them. And if this was something you said, that may not be it, right? But I feel like whoever it is that's around this person that has been, again, we talked about contagion, whoever's been influencing them and stuff, I don't feel they're going to carry that anymore. It's like, oh, this is that person's stuff. I'm not interested in that actually. Or I don't feel that way actually, I feel like this. And I think maybe this conversation you're having with them will give them a little bit more agency to make that distinction, but the process has begun if you're seeing this. So receptacle, then key. What's key? Show me key. Oh, right, okay. So I'm seeing a literal key, and then the room went blue because of my lighting. Now, key with blue sends me to House of Leaves associatively, and then I think a house that is bigger on the inside, or an emotional landscape that is bigger on the inside. So there is a sense with this person that the more you deep dive with them on this, the more is going to surface. And it may be that what seems like just the size of a house is actually a kind of a labyrinth, right? By which I mean that if you are the first person to facilitate this person's emotional healing, there may be a point later on where, despite your efficacy in that area, and despite their efficacy, by the sounds of it, to begin to process now, their readiness, there might be a requirement for further help down the line in terms of like unpicking the rest of it. That's either not your job to do or like not appropriate for you to do because of how you know them, right? So if you know them professionally, you wouldn't then put yourself in the position of their therapist. Equally, if it was a romantic connection, you might want to talk about some of their issues and stuff, and support them through a traumatic thing, but you wouldn't then want to be the person who helps them through their trauma in like an almost professional way. You would want them to go for help with that, right? It's that sort of a thing. And again, alter as you see fit for you. But yeah, this thing is bigger on the inside. There's more to it than meets the eye right now. And that's not to say, it's not to give you overwhelm of like, oh, this is so much bigger than it looks right now. It's not that. It's that once they're ready to bring the really heavy stuff up, they might find that there's a bunch of shit underneath it that they didn't remember, or that they didn't process, or even good stuff that they didn't recognize or see, right? A good example is, you know, when people come into recovery from like emotional abuse, sometimes they rediscover selves and hobbies and even networks that they had, you know, either prior to the abuse or that they let go of during it. And then they like click back into that identity as well, right? So somebody who, I don't know, may have been a musician before all of this began, suddenly picks up a guitar again, or similar, you know, it's that kind of a thing. So this isn't necessarily the house is bigger on the inside in a negative way. This is also the house is bigger on the inside in a sort of, there's all kinds of stuff in there, right? But this stuff needs to be pulled to the surface before we can really get in. And if you are hoping to have a relationship in a romantic sense with this person, that's pretty good to know, right? That there's whole worlds of this person's self that you don't know because they don't know, because it's been under all this. The additional message with that, with it being House of Leaves, is a reference back to what I said about the Minotaur. And like if this person is a bit volatile and stuff right now, taking due consideration for that and handling it in the correct way, and not internalizing that that is something that they're doing to you because of how you are. Okay? Are we... Thank you, by the way. I love talking with you. Are we done in terms of you? Yes, you've got shit to do. Okay. I will not call on you again, good sir. I think that's it in general, actually, guys. So I hope that that last bit was useful as clarification, if nothing else. And I hope that you got something out of this reading. If you did, please, please, please comment, like, subscribe, share the channel wherever you want to. I'm a small channel with a big mission. Readings like this genuinely do help people. And if it's helped you to the point that you've gotten this far, I'd really like to get the channel a bit more known. And you know the ways that that happens, right? You're all familiar with the algo. So share me far and wide, do what you can. If you'd like to make a donation, there's also a PayPal link, but it's not an obligation by any stretch. I understand these are hard times for people, right? Or you might just not want to, and that's fine. Equally, if you want a really specific reading that takes into account circumstances that can't be described in a general reading, there is a link to book with me down there as well. I have lots of stuff available on Etsy that is as open or closed as you kind of want it to be, where we begin with the original format, but you can kind of ask around within the realm of, you know, reasonable card provisions. And my personal readings, depending on how precise we want to get, tend to range from half an hour to anywhere up to like 3 hours for a full-on fuck your life reading. So if you need like an overhaul that is personalized, as well as helping this person, like, feel free to help yourself. My prices are very low, etc. But if you're not doing anything further at this point, thank you for being with me up to this stage. I hope to see you again. I feel you'll be very useful to this friend or whoever they are, and vice versa actually. And I think it's a good thing that you've come to the recognition of your role as a powerful force for healing and good in the world. Take care.